Good afternoon and welcome to Tiggywinkles. My name's Steve, I'm the vet here, and along with the nursing team, we look after around 1,000 inpatients who are sick and injured wildlife every day here at the hospital. Understandably, there's much concern and confusion at the moment regarding the current worldwide coronavirus pandemic. Many of us find ourselves in unprecedented circumstances, and many aspects of normal life are currently on hold. Our thoughts and wishes go out to the tens of thousands of families who've been affected by this pandemic. Here at Tiggy's, we have many dedicated supporters and followers, as well as many dedicated rescuers, fosterers, donors and staff. Many people have concerns about how this pandemic will affect the animals we see, and we do see around 12,000 cases per year, and especially now as it's leading up to our busy period where we have baby season starting and lots more animals will be coming through our doors. In an attempt to ease some of those concerns and to bust maybe some of the myths regarding coronavirus, and also to deliver you some meaningful facts, I've tried to put together this update for you. There are many new publications every day regarding COVID-19, but just be careful what you read and what you trust. Try sticking to peer-reviewed and referenced sources where possible. After this presentation, we'll upload a document with all of this information, including a link to the National Centre for Biotechnology Information, which has a list of all the published peer-reviewed cases that get brought out every day. As many of you know, coronavirus disease 2019, or COVID-19, is caused by the coronavirus SARS-CoV-2, and this was first described in Wuhan, China on the 31st of December 2019. Up to now, the virus has spread globally, with approaching 2 million human cases and over 115,000 deaths worldwide. Some of you have asked, are coronaviruses usual in wild animals? Well, coronaviruses are common in birds and mammals, but there are many different types of coronavirus, and many of them don't cause clinical disease. There are four main types of coronavirus. There are alpha coronaviruses, which mainly occur in bats, but also occur in some other animals. And alpha coronavirus is a really common component of the human common cold. There are also gamma coronaviruses, which affect cetaceans, so dolphins and whales, and also some birds. And there are delta coronaviruses, which also affect birds and mammals. But none of these are the same as beta coronaviruses, which are also present in lots of mammals, and also represents the virulent forms of coronavirus, such as MERS and SARS. And this is also the class that COVID-19 belongs to. So what sort of disease does coronavirus produce? Well, these viruses usually invade the cells that lie in your digestive tract and also your respiratory tract, and therefore they will often cause diarrhea, or they can cause respiratory tract signs. Interestingly, COVID-19 can also attack the nerves in the oral cavity, leading to the loss of smell or the distortion in taste that we often hear being referred to. So could these coronaviruses be transmitted from animals to humans? Well, reassuringly, coronaviruses do tend to be species specific, and transmission from one species to another is quite rare. However, the problem with this pandemic is that beta coronaviruses like SARS-CoV-2 have shown a broader range of host species. Fortunately, transmission doesn't necessarily mean disease, and most of the time when transmission occurs cross-species, there's only subclinical disease or very mild forms of the disease. And unfortunately, COVID-19 is a slight exception to this, where we are seeing more serious clinical disease in humans. Viruses readily undergo mutations, which explains how they adapt to new hosts quite readily, and coronaviruses in particular are well adapted to combining genetic material and mutations of other viruses, and therefore useful host mutations readily occur. This is how mixing of the viruses in certain species, such as bats, pigs, chickens, etc., is particularly dangerous from a human health point of view. So which species is SARS-CoV-2 associated with? Again, interestingly, the SARS-CoV-2 virus is 96% genetically identical to a bat coronavirus that was previously reported in the intermediate horseshoe bat from the southwest China's Yunnan province. However, there's been a significant mutation in that virus in one of its binding sites, which now allows it to enter human cells, and this is something the bat version was not able to do. What is also interesting is these bats were hibernating when COVID-19 first appeared in China, so it may well be that the change in their binding sites and the change in their pathogenicity occurred via a currently unknown species over a much longer period of time. So we're still not sure exactly how it's made that jump. So why did COVID-19 break through the species barrier, and how is this related to a wildlife hospital, and can this happen furthermore in a wildlife hospital? Well, as I've sort of mentioned, usually for this to happen there has to be a specific set of circumstances that occur at the same time, such as specific mutations or replication of the virus. This is much more likely when you have infected animals, infected secretions, and then close contact of extended duration, and then multiple species present in that close contact. This is why wildlife markets, or so-called wet markets, are ideal for this to happen, where you frequently have poor hygiene, minimal biosecurity, stressed animals which shed more of the virus, and also close contact between people and those animals. And sometimes you also get slaughter on site and even ingestion of raw meat on these sites. So all these circumstances come together as an ideal set of circumstances for mutation of the virus and infection of other species. Conditions in our wildlife hospital and in zoos and other wildlife centres around the UK are much different, as we generally practice good hygiene all the time, not just because of COVID-19, but we've always practiced high levels of biosecurity. Our contact with the animals is actually minimal. We try not to handle them unless we absolutely have to, and we take measures to reduce their stress wherever possible, and we carry out disease monitoring all the time. Another important thing is we don't eat any of our patients either, which sometimes happens with these other markets. Time is also a really important factor. Several genetic studies agree that SARS and MERS, the previous pathogenic forms of these virus, their emergence is linked to several decades of continuous proximity to animals and between humans and animals, allowing several mutations and recombination events to occur over a long period of time, thus selecting for this increased pathogenicity of this COVID-19. What about reported cases in other animals? There's plenty in the media about other animals having this disease. Well, COVID-19 infection, or the risk in other species, especially pets, is something we need to think about. It may come as a surprise to you, there are actually only 4 case reports of positive domestic pets having coronavirus. One common feature in all of these cases is the pets were kept by and cared for by positive coronavirus shedding owners. The first case was a 17-year-old Pomeranian dog in Hong Kong, and that lived with a COVID-19 positive and sick owner, and the dog had weekly positive serology, so a weak positive antibody level, but no clinical signs. That dog actually died of heart disease and kidney disease and was reported as unrelated to SARS-CoV-2, but there wasn't any post-mortem examination. The second case was a 2-year-old German Shepherd that was living with a COVID-19 positive and sick owner. That dog had nasal and oral swabs which were positive for the virus, but the dog had no clinical signs and was placed in quarantine. There was a cat in Belgium that showed signs consistent with coronavirus after living with an infected owner who actually returned from Italy. The cat was positive on PCR, so positive for the virus, and had some mild clinical signs, but they began to resolve after 9 days, and the cat completely recovered. And then finally, a cat in Hong Kong was also sent to quarantine with absolutely no signs after the owner tested positive, and samples from that cat were also positive, but the cat never developed any illness. There are quite a few other studies out there, some are peer-reviewed and some aren't, showing cats in the Wuhan province have been developing antibodies to the virus, but it does seem that most animals we're seeing with any evidence of the virus are acting as fomites. So what this means is a fomite is something in which the virus can live. So that can be an animal, but it can also be a shopping bag, a door handle, anything like that can act as a fomite. So many reports of the ability of SARS-CoV-2 to infect other species have actually only been conducted in vitro. So they've only been conducted in laboratories or using computer models. And this is extremely different from the situation you would find in the real world. Also recently, you may have seen that Bronx Zoo in New York reported they had one Malayan tiger that tested positive for SARS-CoV-2, and then there were another 6 cats in that zoo that had very mild respiratory signs. And this resulted in the zoo of use of more effective PPE and some work practice changes, but those animals are going on to recover. I would urge you to take great caution when reading newspaper articles or reading media, as information released about these animal species and their susceptibility to the virus can often be misinterpreted, can be relayed incorrectly, or spun in a misleading direction that can lead to panic and unnecessary action. As I've said, a lot of these infections and situations don't directly relate to daily life. Also, so far, there isn't a PCR test, so an antigen test, or a serology test, so an antibody test, that's available on the market for testing animals, but work is ongoing. So what is the risk of transmission from owners and keepers to their animals? Well, this SARS-CoV-2 virus is showing some abilities to enter cells of different species, and there's evidence of it can enter cells of bats, cats, ferrets, some primates. So close contact between these species and infected, clinically sick people should be minimized where possible. People caring for animals, such as in the Wildlife Centre, should implement the recommended hygiene measures as laid out by the government, including regular hand washing, avoidance of close contact, so no cuddling or holding the animals too closely or tightly, and also the wearing of masks and other PPE where social distancing is impossible to be maintained. At Tiggywinkles, we always ensure we have the minimum contact possible with the animals. And since before the government lockdown, we've been implementing certain social distancing measures, such as 2-metre distancing rule between staff members and maximum numbers of staff members in certain rooms, and also wearing of appropriate PPE when we're working in closer proximity with each other, such as when we have to anaesthetise an animal for an operation. As mentioned before, we also maintain strict levels of hygiene and biosecurity at all times, so the risk to and the risk from our wild animal patients seen here at Tiggywinkles is absolutely minimal. Some people have also expressed concern about animals being infected and then passing it back to the keepers or the owners. It's shown that animals infected by humans usually excrete a very, very low dose of virus, often below the infective level. And the zoonotic risk from animals in this circumstance is considered very, very low by several national health agencies, including the OIE. So the risk of incidentally infected wild animals shedding enough virus to then infect humans again is extremely low. And, basically we try and keep the distance anyway, so there really is minimal risk of that happening. The risk of this coronavirus pandemic to the world's population is very real, and we each must play our part in limiting its spread wherever possible. With our strict biosecurity at Tiggywinkles, we're currently able to carry on treating the sick and injured wild animals that are brought into our care every day. I do hope this information has been useful to help you understand some of the details and some of the facts surrounding coronavirus, but if you do have further questions, then please do contact me on my email, so steve@tiggywinkles.org, and I'd be happy to try and answer any other questions you have about the wild animals. As you can tell from going on round us, our work is still carrying on here, so we appreciate any help, any donations. Have a look at our Facebook page, have a look at our Amazon wish list, and check in on our website, and we'll continue doing the job we all love and enjoy, and caring for the sick and injured wild animals you bring to us. Thank you very much.